episode 114. Tonight, we are going to talk about, well, you can find us on all the different platforms soon. Tonight is Tom's show. He's going to be steering the boat, and we are going to talk about something that's anniversaries coming up. Not a positive anniversary, but a negative anniversary. We're going to be talking about Waco. We may talk a little bit about Ruby Ridge and the connections with the Oklahoma City bombing as well. And that being said, Tom, why don't you start steering the boat?
Well, thank you, Zeus. Welcome, everybody. Yeah, so like Zeus said, those things, I think all three of those are really connected. Ruby Ridge, then Wake, because Ruby Ridge's connection to Waco is mainly on the ATF side, and Oklahoma City obviously was a response to both of those things by Terry Nichols and McVeigh. But this all ties in with what's going on currently. I know Jim Jordan's having some hearings on Congressional Hill about, the weaponization of government agencies with what's going on. I was trying to remember all the things. There's so many of them, instances. And just real quick, before we get back to Waco. So the IRS going after Matt Taibbi. I don't know if you guys heard about that. Went after our friend John Paul Mac Isaac. FBI arresting James O'Keefe. Trump, obviously, being attacked by everybody. FBI getting involved with Twitter, affecting the elections. So it's just like it seems like across the board, although you don't hear a lot about ATF anymore. They're kind of quiet. But just a lot of weaponization of the federal government. So this goes like way back to Ruby Ridge and Waco. And I think a lot of us were kind of brushing up on Waco, especially the anniversary of that one's coming up tomorrow on April 19. But the funny thing, you go back to these things. The first one was Ruby Ridge in '92, which was 6 months before Waco started, and Ruby Ridge was a disaster for the ATF. When they went in there, and then the Weavers, I think, were the name of the family, was shooting at the ATF. They all got exonerated. Nobody was convicted of murder. I think they got tried for murder, and they were all cleared of murder.
The Ruby Ridge people or the ATF?
The Ruby Ridge people.
And I think it was the U.S. Marshals, not the ATF, but it was from a gun charge. But whatever, I'm not sure.
It's weird, especially with Waco. There were so many different agencies and alphabet soup
that was that
were involved. Even like Great Britain, for some reason, was in there, and the state of Texas had people in there.
The Rangers.
There's all kinds of people, and I think Ruby Ridge. I'm pretty sure ATF was in there as well, because of the gun charges or the alleged gun charges, and that's one of the main reasons why Waco happened. And we talk about conspiracy, Zeus versus choreography. I think Waco, there's a lot of choreography with Waco, I think, right?
I was actually saying that to Mike earlier when we were talking about this, that Waco is the epitome of my statement about choreography versus conspiracy. Yeah. It felt so choreographed. When I watched the documentary you told me to watch, Waco Rules of Engagement.
Yeah.
Fucking such a good documentary.
Disturbing.
Maybe one of the last really honest documentaries I've seen. I mean, there's definitely other since, but I was blown away by the complete shit show that Waco was. We all kind of knew that things were squirrely with it even back then, but Mike and I were talking about it earlier, and when it happened, we were like, take those fuckers out. You know what I mean? We were like, these guys are obviously the bad guys, and they need to be taken out. And this Koresh thinks he's Jesus, and it's a cult, and blah blah blah. And then when I see this video, it felt very apparent that the puppet masters, I mean, I'm being extreme with that, but that it was very choreographed.
Right. There was a lot of deception. Like, for example, when they would get on there and the the government would say there were no guns on those helicopters. And the guys would say, no, there were guns. You're lying. There were guns on there. They kept saying there's no guns on the helicopter. What they meant was there were no guns attached to the
Right.
helicopters.
Mounted.
But they were being real
But
deceptive.
there were snipers.
And they would
Yeah.
say things like that, like over and over, just kind of word things in a way, a squirrely way that it would be true, but not the whole truth and nothing but the
Right.
truth. So they kept doing that
Yeah.
like over and over. It's like really, I mean, there was like in the choreo, so the choreograph part I thought was, so the ATF had they had egg on their face from Ruby Ridge, which had just happened. They were looking
you,
for something. What?
I'm sorry, can you give a little bit of history on Ruby Ridge? My understanding is it was this guy going up against, the man, and he fired some shots, and it ended up that his wife and his like 2 kids got
One
killed
kid.
in the incident.
I
One
think
kid.
so.
Okay.
There was some people that got shot. It was very similar, but on a smaller scale, I think, to Waco. But I think it's very similar. I think they went in there based on alleged gun charges, and there was the Weavers, him and his brother and his wife and his kid, and then there was another family that was there. This was in Idaho, and this happened just 6 months prior to. I don't have all the details up in front of me, but it's a very similar incident. But the ATF screwed up royally there, and it really made the ATF look bad and the government look bad. On who was the other agency you said, Mike?
It was the U.S. Marshals. Yeah, I mean,
Marshals. Okay.
the crux of the thing with Ruby Ridge, and it was Randy Weaver, and I believe 3 people died, which was his wife. I'm not sure what her name was. His adolescent son, and
Jesus.
one of the U.S. Marshals died. So his wife was actually killed while she was unarmed, standing in a doorway holding her infant or their infant child. So the way it kind of went down is, so Randy Weaver he just died like less than a year ago, actually. He was no saint. Okay, this guy was an avowed white supremacist. He not the nicest dude. From no one contends that he was like super upstanding citizen. However, he was charged with certain gun law violations, I believe, by the ATF, and he was supposed to appear in court, and he didn't appear. So a warrant went out for his arrest for failure to appear, and I think it was the marshals, I could be wrong, that were charged with bringing him in. And so he lived in a very remote area of northern Idaho. It was like I don't know, a few miles from the Canadian border, like way up there, and not anywhere near an incorporated town or anything like that. So I mean, he was out in the hinterlands, right? And a friend of his, I can't remember his name, was out there with him, and they knew. I mean, he knew he dodged this court date, so he knew they were going to come, and the federal agencies had helicopters that came over. They set up remote cameras, like they were surveilling the site in anticipation of figuring out a way to bring him in. So, but the cat was out of the bag, much like Waco, where they knew the federal government was coming. And the spark that lit it off was the agents, who were approaching their house, and this is pretty undisputed, but threw some rocks to distract some dogs that they had there. The dogs, one or two of the dogs charged. The agents shot one of the dogs. The son returned fire. Agents killed the son.
Same thing at Waco.
Yeah, and
first thing they did was shoot the animals.
They shoot the dogs, and then
claim that they didn't shoot first. But how do you know who? I mean, once shots are fired,
it's open, right?
Yeah.
And then one of the agents was killed, and then a sniper took out the wife, and that was really the killing of the wife was the thing that really sent it. I think if that didn't happen, it would still be a big deal, but it wouldn't be such a deal because this was on film. Like there was a record. I mean, and I don't know about the actual execution, but her walking around and all that stuff. This thing went on for 11 days. I think everyone was killed in the first few days.
What's the thing with Waco? And then they tried to film that. They actually brought cameras. They were hoping this was going to be good press for them at Waco.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we're going to redeem ourselves.
And
We're
to
going to
your
bring all
point,
these cameras, the media, we're going to call them. Everybody's going to see us in action. This is going to be awesome.
yeah, and
They screwed that up.
the way Ruby Ridge ended, and I'll jump off, but is Weaver, and I think his friend's name was
Kevin
Harris.
Harris. Yeah.
Yeah. So they were
He was
charged
acquitted.
and they were acquitted because it was found to be self-defense. So the thing is, even if the authorities, whether they're federal, state, local, if they have a good reason to come get you, but there's ways to do it. And if someone just shows up firing at your house, that's no bueno, right? That's the things tend to
And
go south pretty quick.
let's make this clear. We're not endorsing the protagonist of these
Yeah, I'm not.
situations. Clearly, they are bad people, and two in the back of the head, maybe not such a bad idea.
Well, I don't
We're
know about that,
more
dude. I
Yeah,
mean,
no.
we do have laws. I mean, I would
no,
prefer
but
a
I'm
trial. Maybe a trial would be good.
I'm saying the end game. If they had two in the back of their head, I'm not going to lose sleep over it.
Yeah.
What I do lose sleep over is as we've said before, the weaponization of federal agencies to spark a more volatile situation than was actually necessary.
Yeah.
David
With
Koresh,
Waco, it's weird because they could he would go into town from time to time. They could have nabbed him there
Yep.
if they wanted to arrest David Koresh. And he invited them in. He said, "Come in. You can inspect all my guns if you think I got illegal guns. Come on in and inspect them." But they didn't take him up on that offer. They wanted a firefight. I think that was the choreography that was going on. They wanted a
they
show.
wanted something in between what happened and where it was at the beginning.
Yeah, they didn't want what they got. That's for sure.
Right.
But
So the documentary that we're talking about, the Waco's Rules of Engagement, and also a fantastic book. If you like that documentary, you'll love this book called Ashes of Waco by Dick Rivas, who's in the documentary, but he's an investigative reporter. But the contention is that after Ruby Ridge, the U.S., the federal government, ATF, whatever, had a big black eye, and that they were up for funding the following spring, and they were rightfully so taking a lot of flack for this. So they wanted to kind of show their need, right? Like why they are needed, right? So that this was kind of this is a contention that this was a justified, however, overly inflated reaction and setup by them to try to make this big spectacle of getting Koresh, and that's why they didn't take him in town. That's why they didn't take him in easier ways they could have, because they wanted to show why they needed this. These guys for the ATF, they trained at Fort Hood for like a week ahead of this, like going through. They had a mock-up of the home, going through all this. So this was a in full tactical gear and everything else. And now they knew what the Davidians had inside. They knew they had a psychological breakdown of Koresh. This wasn't an unknown thing. Just like in Ruby Ridge, they knew Randy Weaver was an ex-Green Beret, for crying out loud. Like the government knew that. This is not someone that's just going to lay down, like, and they did this provocative stuff against people that they know are a little unhinged,
high-strung.
Yeah.
Well, anyway. And we were talking about it earlier, and that's where the choreography versus conspiracy came in. It's like I don't remember the exact time period that you said, Michael, earlier, but it was a few weeks before they started talking about Koresh on the news. It was like they were building up this narrative.
The newspaper, yeah.
In a few weeks, they were going to act upon. So they were kind of like making us be these people that go, oh my God, it's another cult. I would say if we were to, I can't say that from memory what we were thinking, but I would imagine most people were thinking along the Jim Jones
Mhm.
line of thought,
Oh,
that
yeah.
this was going to be another Jim Jones, another Jesus figure that did abysmal things and was going to act out violently.
Well, wait a
And
minute.
again,
Weren't there stories though leaked at the time also, like Zeus is saying, and maybe your point is that they were, fabricated, but weren't there stories about, sexual crimes against children as well and
yeah, but
against
they didn't go there based on that. If they would have
no,
gone there based
no, I
on that,
know
whole
they
nother
well
story.
no, but they supposedly went in there because, well, one, they ended up getting this warrant. I mean, they had, I think it was an undercover agent. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I mean, I remember seeing a movie based on this like a while ago. But wasn't there an indication that they had like hand grenades that were discovered going there?
Yeah,
I do seem to remember something along those lines.
they tried to claim that. One of the weird uh, similarities between this one, because looking back on, I always remember Janet Reno from Waco,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, that
Janet,
was what made her.
I
That
didn't
made her.
realize it. Yeah, until I watched this documentary, but it was very similar to what the National Archives did with Biden when they went into the Trump raid recently. So Janet Reno asked Bill Clinton, she was saying, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to, ram it with the tank and put the gas in and gas them all, even though they knew it was kind of flammable. And
right.
Clinton said, well, I'm going to leave the decision to you if you think that's the best thing to do. And that's the same thing Biden said to the National Archives woman when she went to him to ask for permission to raid Mar-a-Lago. And he said, well, I'll leave that up to you. I
Wait,
don't
they
want to
sent the
get
library
involved."
police to them?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
The National Archives. Who did they send there? National Archives with like guns?
To Mar-a-Lago.
No, he's talking
Yeah,
about
yeah.
Yeah,
Mar-a-Lago.
they went in to get the
It
so-called
wasn't.
classified documents.
Yeah, it
No,
We
wasn't
did
the
a show on
archives
that. I
police.
don't know.
Yeah, we
no,
did a
it
whole.
wasn't.
But I thought that was funny that I mean, this is the same exact setup, basically.
I do find that I like the
I-
library police thought process.
Yeah, you better not be overdue, man.
Remember
Right.
Mr. Bookman
Your
from
books are
Seinfeld?
overdue.
Oh yeah, Mr. Book. I think.
Open fire.
Hey,
I mean,
Stephen King wrote a whole novel called The Library Policeman, and it was actually quite scary.
I did not know that.
Yes, good. That's yeah. The
Let
Friends
me
of
write.
Zeus
Let me write
recommends
that down.
that reading. Get out there and
Library
read that book.
policeman.
Yes.
I
But
think.
I
And
think the part about Waco that makes it so much worse than Ruby Ridge was just the children being there. And I
Yeah.
remember when this happened in 93, right? So I think we
Mhm.
were all about 20, 22,
Yeah.
somewhere
College,
in that
baby.
range.
yeah,
And when you watch it, yeah, you're thinking, okay, kind of Jim Jones, Hale Bop cult, something like that. This guy
yeah,
thinks
yeah.
Jesus. I mean, this is what we were hearing on the media
Well,
anyway.
they had footage of him saying like creepy, weird religious stuff with his
Right.
big glasses, and
He's
I
talking
mean,
about the
like,
Seven Seals, which I think was
yes,
like a movie. There was
Yeah.
movies out at the time about the Seventh Seal. There's
yeah,
always like
Yeah,
a
the
horror movie
prophecy I
about
think
that.
was right around then.
Bringing back Armageddon. Yeah.
But
yeah.
I would
so
watch it and I would think, okay, I don't agree with the guy and what he's doing and the stupid cult stuff and people living on a compound. It's kind of hippie sort of stuff. I don't
Yeah,
really
Freaking
care
hippies.
for it.
Freaking
Right.
But to
hippies,
have
man.
kids in there and then to see them like ram a tank into the building, you couldn't help but sympathize with Koresh and those people. I mean, regardless of what they did or what they were up to, or who knows what they were up to inside those walls, but to be burned alive, I mean, it
See,
was,
I think sympathize. I don't sympathize with Koresh. I don't sympathize with the adults. I agree with you 100%. Any law enforcement agency with any credibility would have been like, all right, send the kids out and then we'll talk some more.
I think they
But
did.
get the kids out of there. And they didn't do that. The
They
ATF,
tried.
as far as
Yeah, Zeus. They must have tried to do that.
So-
yeah, they could have held
just-
on to the kids just as a bargaining chip.
So a
and-
couple numbers just to throw this out there. So a total of 86 people died. It was 82 Davidians and 4 federal agents. There were 35 people released between February and April, like when the first attack happened and then to the burning. And of those 35, 21 were children. So the majority of the people released were children. Part of the thing, and I think what people that aren't as familiar with this and what Zeus is getting at with choreography and kind of like what we're talking about, we're not trying to like pump up Koresh as like some great dude or whatever, or Randy
Not at
Weaver.
all. Not
But
at all. He's a piece of shit.
the thing is, the reality is that this was handled incredibly poorly. It was botched, and we have Koreshes, we have Weavers, we have Hunter Bidens of the world that are completely irresponsible, crazy people, but we expect professional law enforcement agencies and people that are charged with this. We give them tanks and bulletproof vests and machine guns, that they have a certain way of dealing with things. And obviously there were enormous mistakes made at Waco, and there was like almost no accountability for it. Even as early, if you look early in the siege, when they were releasing people saying, hey, come on out, da 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 da. Well, when they would come out, people from inside, and this is accounted in David Thibodeau's book. Clive Doyle wrote about this as well. They're like looking out the windows as like 2 or 3 of them are walking down the driveway to the agents, and they would reach the agent and they'd get cuffed and thrown into a car. So it's like that. What's going on? Like, even if look, there was no press within a mile of this place. All the images that the press had were like through huge telephoto lenses. But the people inside, they're seeing certain people come out, which was mainly because they were the older people that had medical issues or that needed medicine or whatever. And then they get arrested and thrown into a car when they're going out. And again, their animals are getting killed. People that were shot that were like in the yard, they're running the bodies over with tanks. They're playing sounds of rabbits being killed all night long, like psychological warfare.
Remember, kids are inside.
And kids are inside the whole time. I mean, any rational person should recognize that was probably not a good idea.
That there was any of this psychological warfare taking place.
Denied it.
If I may, I'm going to actually argue your point. Let's look at Columbine as an example. So when they were like shuffling people out, everybody got handcuffed and
no, they didn't. And they had to put their arms up.
A lot of them did, because they haven't had enough experience with these situations where probably, we don't even know, but somebody probably did a school shooting and got away, so they knew that you gotta hold everybody until you can vet them and then let them go. So I kind of get the whole arresting them as they're coming out, because at the time and how it was choreographed, these people were the villains. So,
but I don't know, was this temporarily detained, Mike, or did they go? No,
they were arrested. A lot of the people that came out, it ended up being I don't know. They were charged.
That's the difference.
They were thrown in prison,
temporarily detained.
They were, but here's the thing, Zeus, and I get your point. But the thing is, it's like these are people coming out after negotiations and things like that. And again, I expect these people to be professionals. If you're trying to get people to come out, right? Hey, Zeus, man, I need you to come out of there. Can you please come out? Look, here's the thing. Here's a Twinkie. And then like you come out and I like punch you in the stomach, right? And then so like Jack's still in the thing looking out. He's like, why am I going to come out? They just punch Zeus in the stomach.
Not give me the Twinkie, you fucking open fire.
I'm just saying, these are supposed to be professionals. It's not like they're in a downtown environment. I mean, these are grandmothers coming out.
Listen,
and getting thrown against a car. And I'm just saying, poor decision.
I'm not going to beat them up for that. I'm just not going to beat them up for that. I get.
Okay.
And I mean, it's part of the choreography. So yes, there is this like gray area of. I mean, I get what you're saying, and I think you get what I'm saying, is that caution, at least, or the perception of caution, which might be a more accurate assessment of this, The perception of caution was arrest every fucking person that came out of there and
But
deal
if
with
you're
it later.
trying to get
Yeah.
people out,
Yeah,
don't
no,
you want-
Mike, I get what you're saying, but
Yeah.
at the same time, if the allegations or what they knew up to that point of surrender is that they've got guns and grenades in there,
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
I mean,
I got you.
you're gonna cuff the guy. I mean, you're going to ensure your own safety and that of everybody there. So I'm kind of with Zeus. I'm not saying it was great judgment to do that right in front of the fucking house. Like maybe there was
And it was
another
very
way.
likely part of the choreography. I think this is a very choreographed situation. Waco, above all, is the most choreographed of anything. So I think it's a little bit of what Mike's saying, a little bit what I'm saying. Naturally, you take the villains and you, at bare minimum, I don't know about the arresting, but they weren't arrested right there. They were detained right there and arrested later,
It's kind
you
of
know, from a legal standpoint. But so I think that yes, the choreography is there, but I also think that I'm not gonna harsh on anybody for detaining the people that may have had grenades
I
that
think
they could have just fucking
Okay,
dropped it
they
right
didn't-
there and blew up like 6 cops.
Okay, and they didn't find any grenades. That's the first I'm hearing about the
Okay,
grenades.
but
my
the
point is,
perception
look,
was
these are supposed to be law enforcement professionals. There were many opportunities to de-escalate this, and it seems like
Yeah.
along the way
A
they
lot of bad-
escalated it at
Yeah.
every chance.
Did they ever
And
try just
Exactly,
going up
and
and
I agree
knocking
with
on the
that.
door? And
I guess originally, but then
I agree
I
with
don't
what
think
you're
they
saying,
ever
Mike.
did.
I'm
No,
just
they didn't.
well, they did allow. So later on in the siege, there were lawyers for the Davidians that were allowed it. There were people that went in and out during the siege. Again, this was all
Well,
being
yeah, once you
negotiated.
start a siege, but I
Yeah.
mean, before that, did they ever try just go up and knock on the door and say,
once
guys,
you start
you
a
know,
siege, you
When you
here
gotta
you
start a
got
follow
some,
siege,
through.
you know, guns
you're
in there.
committed.
Can we take a look around and something like that? I mean, they
I'm
never even tried that.
yeah, I'm
And
not.
yet, with January 6th, fucking one person died and 300 people were arrested. There's
1,000.
the government's fucked up.
They're trying to get
I'm
another
going out
1,000.
on a limb.
Look, here's the thing, and just to jump in, and I'll for me personally, I mean, I was in my second to last semester in college when this started. So it was way down in my interest level when it started, but it was inescapable, right? You couldn't get away from it. And at the time, I was like, man, what are these dudes' problems? Like, whatever, they're crazy people. I hope they get arrested. Whatever.
We all were. I think everybody was that way.
Because I believed, for the most part, in the FBI. I still had trust in the federal government to some respect. And when everything burned down, I was like horrified, and not horrified like, man, the government really screwed up. I was just like, holy crap. And what it did is it caused me to look into it a little bit more. And I didn't just look into it for a week. I looked into it for a few years. And then when I found out, this is before that documentary came out, when I started reading on certain things, I was like, holy crap, there's like this whole other layer, multiple layers here that I wasn't privy
Like
to.
an onion.
I was ashamed. I was ashamed that I bought into the conventional wisdom. And at the time, I remember this. I'm like, I'm not letting that happen again. And that's how
And you
you
know
get
what?
to me today and it was a turning point. And if you look at, like, they hung bed sheets out the windows that said,
Oh yeah.
please God, send us the media. And, like, FBI broke off negotiations, but the federal
Well, they had one that
agents were
said, turn the phone back on.
turn the phone. Yeah, they were keeping the
Which would
press
be the
like
first
really
one I would put
far.
out.
Yeah, they were keeping the press far away. And again, these were people. It was a religious sect. It was a branch of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. They had been in that area on that property for decades, 50 plus years. Press started calling them a cult, right? It was their home. They built it from previous cabins that they had. They recycled the wood. It became a compound, right? The guns that were stored there, it was a gun stash, right? But they were gun dealers. So it was their
Well,
inventory, right? But
Didn't
That's the
people,
choreography.
didn't people go
They
there
called it
to
a
like,
church.
they called it a
Government called it
church.
a compound.
So whatever. What I'm
But-
saying is, it
but-
taught me that the media is so powerful that, and I consider myself a
Yeah.
fairly intelligent person, and I was completely bamboozled. And again, I'm not
did you say barely
anti-government.
intelligent person?
Fairly, I'm saying I'm not like
Oh, okay, I'm
anti-government
sorry, I'm
crazy
sorry.
person,
I
whatever.
heard
And
you wrong.
and this whole situation has so much gray in it, it's ridiculous. But it definitely wasn't what they were selling us in the media for those 4 months. It definitely wasn't that. There was a lot more nuance to it.
You know,
They're not into nuance.
the amazing thing about this show is we look at things and we're like, this is when everything went to shit. Like my argument before was that like when the ticker tape started on the bottom of the screen, that
Mhm.
was the fucking death of
Yeah.
all news. When
Yeah.
they could give you stuff at the bottom, but I'm really leaning towards this was the death of all news. Yeah, so okay, correct me if I'm wrong. So they were gun dealers, but legally gun dealers,
They
right?
went to gun
They would like
shows.
sell guns,
Yeah.
but they
Yeah,
would sell
Just
guns
trading.
out of there.
They were trying to make a buck.
The
They'd go and buy a
contention,
Yeah.
couple and then resell them for a
Yeah,
little bit
but
more.
there was
that's
an
all they-
allegation. There was an allegation or something that had to do with them converting weapons into automatic weapons.
They did produce
Correct.
one at the end, just one that they found, and I don't. At this
That's
point,
not
I
going to
don't
be
really
enough to
trust
go up
them.
against the
They
government.
got that out of the.
well, no, they said they were 48, which have never been seen. The door disappeared. All the ballistic investigation, that you can't do that because the building burned to the ground. I mean, there's a lot of
How about-
convenient things
Yeah.
that
How
happened.
about the video from the helicopter where they're saying there's no guns, and the helicopter's flying by and you hear
Yeah, I know.
Well,
Well, here's
the
the
worst
thing.
one,
Yeah.
what was it? The infrared video towards the end of the documentary. If
The
you got
FLIR
that far,
footage. Yeah.
well, once the building was on fire, you could see there were two agents standing right outside the door, firing at the door so nobody could come out
Yeah.
while it was on
Wow.
fire.
Yeah.
And gosh, think about that.
And like, you know, so there's this common adage about like, and I don't believe it because I believe you know what you're doing, but like they always say that like Nazi soldiers, like they didn't know what they were doing, they were just following commands. And I think you can apply it to this. And I'm not saying complete bullshit. Like I think some people are just driven to do their job and do it well in trust in their leadership. But I also feel like shooting at a door where people are fucking exiting from a inferno,
I think it was
you know,
revenge at that
maybe
point.
not such a great
Yeah.
Because they lost 4 of their guys like day one, right?
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
then from that point, I think they decided, okay, we're going to get these fuckers. You know, whatever happened, they're not coming out of there alive.
It's a war.
I
Yeah.
think they made up their minds that that's what was going to happen.
And I'm not even saying that
And
I
then
wouldn't
everything
have
else
been
was just
like,
covering their asses after that. Whatever they had to do to lie or deceive or to cover up what they were. But I think that it was all about revenge after
think
4
if-
of
I think
theirs
we're-
got killed.
I think if we're honest with ourselves, if I watch 5 of my brothers get fucking gunned down, I lean towards my brothers. Whether they're right or wrong is not the thing. These are the guys
Right.
I
Well, I think
drink
that's what
with. These are the
happened.
guys that I go to their barbecues and
The
I'm
problem
their
is,
friend. And then
okay, but if some of your
suck
brothers
that
get
right out
gunned
of my
down,
life.
Zeus, you can't kill a bunch of children.
Yeah.
no.
in
I
response,
what I'm
which is what they
saying
did.
is no. What I'm saying is I get from the again like the Nazi soldier aspect of it of like we didn't know what we were doing, but we knew what we were doing. Like they knew what they were doing, and it was dastardly. But I get the mindset. I'm not condoning it. I'm simply saying that I get the mindset of you took people that were important in my life
Right.
and you destroyed their families, their friends, all these things. So I get
I understand
where
that too.
the
But it's like
grunt-
if I see Koresh if he comes out the door, okay, I'm going to blow his head off because he
Oh,
killed
fuck
4 of my
yeah.
guys. But you
Yeah.
can't, there's kids in there, babies even.
I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. I'm not condoning their behavior. I'm simply saying I get the mindset that
Right.
they
I understand the
came
mindset too, but at some, they had,
Yeah.
I don't know, they went too far, obviously.
The thing that was so frustrating with this, and again, we should all expect. I think people who are professionals in law
Be right back, guys.
enforcement also expect to be held to the standard of being professionals and being,
Yeah.
not reacting the way Zeus was saying, like, I'm just going to take this guy out. I mean, that's for the Koreshes and the Weavers and the McVeys of the world. Like, but we want these people that are in this position who have the backing of us, right? They're there for us. They're representing us as a society to be over the top professional about this. And when people talk about the connection with Oklahoma City to Waco, I mean, it's a direct line. I mean, McVeigh was there um, during the siege. He was there selling like stickers that were like anti-government stickers and stuff like that, sitting on the hood of his Toyota. So he was a combat veteran, and he felt
He was
betrayed.
at Waco or
He was at
Ruby Ridge?
Waco.
Okay.
Yeah, he was with the press. There's footage of him like sitting on the hood of his car selling bumper stickers and stuff. So he had made a pilgrimage to Waco during those 4 months or whatever, 2 months.
It was
And
like
so he was
6 months after Ruby Ridge.
yeah, but so Waco, they had the initial raid was in February, and then
Oh,
the
I see. Yeah, 51
conflagration was
days. Like,
yeah. He
so,
was there not the whole time, but he was there for a period of time, and he's been caught on footage. So anyway, he was already having issues with authority and with the government and being an ex-soldier and all this stuff. So I think, and again, I'm not blaming. Look, Oklahoma City was caused by Tim McVeigh, and he admitted it, and there's no question, and he was executed
yeah.
for it. However, because I think if there was some people who were held accountable for the mistakes that were made at Waco, and I'm not talking about executing them but firing, like
Somebody
it seems
got
like
arrested. I want to
it's
say, I'm trying to find it.
but it seems like it's been like 30 years, 40 years since anyone in the federal government's been fired for anything. I mean, don't you guys get
Yeah,
that feel?
No
just fired.
I
shit.
mean, in other words, if we had an honest media who reported things, investigated them, and didn't just write down what they were being told at the press conference and regurgitating it, if they actually independently looked into things, and there was some semblance of justice, and that there were some people that were held accountable, mistakes were made. Again, I'm not talking about ruining people's lives, but like, hey man, that was a poor decision putting CS gas in there, right? I mean, there were corpses that were found with that were their spines were broken in reverse, which is a neurological reaction to cyanide poisoning, which is what,
Ugh.
when you burn the CS gas. So there were mistakes made, but from McVeigh's standpoint, no one was held to account. No one was held to account. No, there was no like, man, we made a mistake. It was all like Koresh did it. They were crazy. Jim Jones, they burned themselves down. And I think if my long story short is, I think if there was some accountability from our press and from our government, I don't think Oklahoma City would have happened.
I mean, maybe we're,
Well, wait a
um,
second. Wait a second, Mike. On that point, and again, this is all, this is 30 years ago. So, I mean, I was a senior in college too. But I do have a sort of fuzzy memory. What weren't there congressional hearings about the debacle that was Waco? Like, wasn't Reno put up there herself?
Yes,
yeah.
but I don't think those hearings were until after Oklahoma City happened.
Oh, is that
I think it was like the summer of '95. I could be wrong.
okay?
I don't
Okay.
know. But yes, but the thing is they weren't widely publicized. And really, even to this day, when you bring up Waco, it's like if you look at like the Netflix special that just came out,
Mm,
and you look at the thing that was on Amazon a few years ago, Amazon Prime, it's still like Crush is this crazy Jim Jones guy. Like they're still milking that. They're still
yeah.
milking that.
Well, I remember Netflix. It was a couple of years ago. Maybe you're talking about the same thing. I know it's not a documentary, but people can look it up. Netflix had like a one season drama
Right.
called Waco, which I remember watching
Yeah.
just because I remember people had talked about, oh, episode 1, like the guy who plays Koresh is the guy from Friday Night Lights, the TV show, and I liked the show. I was like, I'll check that guy out playing David Koresh. Like, let me see if this is any good.
Yeah.
And I think John Leguizamo was in it, and
Wow.
it was a good show. It was like 8 episodes, and
Yeah.
I never saw that.
from what I remember about it, it tried to it was sympathetic enough with the Branch Davidians, and it also didn't completely vilify the ATF. Like, it told a human story about mistakes being made and orders being given.
That's
Um,
good.
you know what I mean? But it didn't have little details like guys waiting outside the firing shots into the
Well,
door while the house was on fire. At least
and
I don't recall seeing that in the show.
and I think, to be fair, I mean, that was probably outliers. Again,
Oh,
David
sure.
Koresh, did David Koresh set the building on fire?
There's a
Maybe.
theory.
Maybe he did.
Yeah,
Maybe it was an accident. Who knows? But the whole thing is, were all the agents that were there like these like horrible, mean dudes that I want to kill these? But no, they were
no.
just doing their job, dude. They're showing up. They're doing their thing. Whatever.
Yeah.
I mean,
Tensions are high.
especially these days. It's very hard these days for people to have any conversations where things are gray. Like everything has to be like
Black and white.
100% this or 100% that, and it's uncomfortable to get into the noodly bits because
Right.
we're human beings.
Well,
Yeah.
Mike too, and that's obviously how McVeigh took it.
Yes.
But speaking, it's a very, ironically enough, it's a very cult-like mindset. And we talked about, I think episode 1 of this podcast was all about tribalism and sort of hive
Mhm.
mind. And, I mean, some of it's like the David Koresh cult thing. Like, we did an episode on cults a while back, and I remember just the sheer horror, and not horror so much as just, I can't conceive of following a leader to the extent that you get to sleep with my wife now and basically tell me how to raise my kids, and I'm on board. Like, I don't know why you would drink the Kool-Aid. Like,
Literally.
I can't really. I
Technically, it was Flavor Aid. It was never Kool-Aid,
Okay,
and I'll stick to that.
thank you, Zeus. But I mean, so I can't conceive of that kind of a dedication, whether you're McVeigh blowing up a federal building or whether you're saying, yeah, fuck my wife. But that hive mindset, it's basically, it comes down to influences. And that's why this media issue is all this stuff is wrapped together, which is why on this podcast we cover it so much. If the
And
government's if the government's controlling the message and beating you over the head with it, that's why we all bought into this guy's a crazy person and these people should all go to, like we bought the hype,
Mhm.
at least
dude, we
until.
bought the hype so much that like 7 days after we were waiting for Koresh, I was talking to Mike about it earlier. There was this weird part of like, what if this guy rises from the fucking ashes? Like people
No, I
were
wasn't expecting that.
in,
Yeah, I didn't expect that.
I didn't
Like-
expect it, but I know people were talking about it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Did we talk about? And I know I
Who was
stepped
talking
away. Did we
about
talk
that?
about McVeigh being at
followers.
Waco?
What?
The ones that were still
Did we
alive.
talk about McVeigh being at Waco?
Yeah,
Mike
he
did.
he
Mike did.
visited. Yeah, he visited. I think the thing, to your point, and cults are their own thing, Jack. But it's sort of like with soldiers, right? Like if
Yeah.
you ever saw that movie Patton at the very beginning,
Yeah.
and George C. Scott gives that thing, like we're gonna go through them like crap through a goose or whatever. We're gonna oil our tank treads with their intestines, and all this
Shooting at
crazy.
the fucking planes with his 45.
But all this
It's a
crazy
great
stuff,
movie.
and people love to be part of a cause. It
Yeah.
can be
Mhm.
it can be being in the military, going into battle. It can be transgender civil rights. It can be Second Amendment rights. It can be going storming the Capitol on January 6th. It can be taking over the Tennessee legislature. It can, whatever. There is almost no greater power in the world to motivate people than righteous indignation. Like if you feel that you are morally justified in something, and that you are being put upon, and that there is no pressure, and you're going to go against them. That's a very powerful force, man, especially when you
Dude.
get it into groups. That's why Marxism is so awesome, because
Yeah.
it motivates people on a level that is irrational. And when people get irrational, they can be very
Anything can happen.
dangerous in groups, and anything can happen.
Well,
Again,
to that point though, just as far as from the perspective of the cult, just to step away from the feds and their culpability here. Now, what is your theory? Like, what were the Branch Davidians? I mean, if they had all these guns and it was an innocent enterprise of their gun dealers, like I don't entirely believe that. But what are the theories as to what they're like? What were they preparing for? Were they preparing for a showdown with the government? Were
they
they
were an apocalyptic cult,
Yes,
definitely.
yeah, they were definitely yeah, I mean, they were all into the Book of Revelations,
I don't think they were
the Seven
prepping for
Seals.
anything.
I
They
don't
had
think-
like they had some food and stuff, but because you live out in the middle of nowhere, yeah, you got to
So
keep a
what-
couple weeks worth of
But no,
stuff.
So
stocked
why-
up. But they weren't
why were
prepping
they
for the
so?
end of the world.
No, they were.
What- what-
I mean, they weren't
I
prepping
don't
for
think
it
they were.
necessarily, but even going back to the 50 years before Vernon Howe, the early leaders of the Branch Davidians they had prophesized that there would be a point in the future where they would go to war with the armies of Babylon, right? You know,
Right.
which I mean, this is their words, not me, but so it was definitely,
Yeah.
that was definitely a driving force with them. They were all preparing for the end times. They were definitely apocalyptic faith. I mean, that was their focus, was Book of
Okay.
Revelations.
Okay,
And
so
to
if
argue the cult concept, every religion was a cult before it was a religion. Every
Yeah.
religion was a fringe group
Yeah.
that, so like
Cult
that's
is
what
just
people
a
latch
small
on to.
religion, right?
I
Yeah.
think people
Well-
latch on to that, and they just the promise of paradise after death is a powerful promise. Even if you're not religious, to know that when you die, that it's going to be fucking, what is it? Ambrosia and the nectar of the gods. It's like everything is perfect. It's a powerful thing. And let's be quite frank. Cults have certain programming that they do. They keep you awake, you lack sleep, they feed you only certain foods. They work you to death. These are all
Mhm.
tenets
Sounds like
tenets
Scientology.
to
Yeah.
well
Well,
actually
Zeus,
Scientology is
they
well,
also
hold on, let me finish what I'm saying though. These are all things that every cult does. Every
Right.
cult in separation from your
family.
your
Family.
family.
Right.
So like you're literally in this thing, you got into it and everything was cool and go ahead, fuck my wife, whatever. And then all of a sudden, there you are. You're like in it and you can't escape because you've cut off your lifeline, you're malnourished, you're worked to death.
I don't think that
I mean,
happens at every cult, though.
Yeah,
I think
it
this one in
happens
particular.
every cult.
But
With religious cults, a lot of times what it is they've got this promise of heaven, like they know the one secret. They found
The
the
way.
secret way to interpret the Bible that's going to save them. They're going to be the ones that are going to get to heaven. Everybody else is going to be, whatever, cast away. So that's sometimes it's just that. I don't think they always have to do the
I
work.
think
to
more
death
often than not that
starvation.
those three things that I mentioned are a very common behavior.
Yeah, they might be
It's
common. I don't know, but I don't think it happens every time, especially with
Well,
religion.
there's a-
You can get people hooked just with the religious hook.
Right.
But I think it's, again, I'm not to anyone here, but I think it's lazy to say that the Branch Davidians were a cult. Like, are there certain things they did that seem cultish? Absolutely, but there's really no reports of anyone being persecuted or
Abused.
or
No, they seem to be
not
part of the community.
But they weren't. There's no reports of people not being allowed to leave, is what I'm trying to say. Unlike Scientology, where there's all these horror stories, there were people like Clive Doyle. He came to Waco, Texas in 1962. He was one of the 11 people that survived the fire. So he'd
Is
been
he
there.
the guy that got into the gunfight with David Koresh?
No, I
There
don't believe
was a
so.
guy that was a leader,
Yeah.
and like Koresh went up against
I
him,
think
and the
that was like
guy.
the
Oh, no,
son
no,
of
that
the
was-
original leader.
Yeah, that was the son of one of the person
And
that
then
was
he
in
ended up
charge
getting
before
arrested
Koresh.
and went to
Yeah.
jail.
Clive Doyle was just a follower. But what I'm saying is, and there's people that came there from all over the world, all different ethnic backgrounds. There are people that were there and left.
From like Australia, I believe.
And England and all that, and of every different race and all that. So what I'm saying is, okay, is definitely cult-like, right? I mean, they're living in they're living communally in a commune, and it had been for decades. And David Koresh was a charismatic leader, and he was very had a lot in common with cult leaders in that he was, very direct and very, again, charismatic. He attracted people to himself. He was incredibly knowledgeable in the Bible. He had a knack for being able to memorize passages and could give a good speech and could preach for hours on end, like nonstop, like in a way that was interesting to people. But so there's definitely things that were culty, right? But I don't think this wasn't like Jim Jones, where like if you try to leave, they shot you in the back. That's a whole different. It's a whole different.
Jim
like
Jones
JV.
fucking killed a senator or something.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So
Totally
again,
different.
not being an apologist, because I know it's like Michael Wilkes thinks that
It crosses the cult line once he says, "Okay, I'm the prophet,
I need to have
and I'm
24
supposed
children.
to bear 24 children.
Yeah.
So I
it's
need to have
culty.
sex with your wife to make one of these kids,
Or
Do you
your
mind?
child.
Can you send your wife over down the hall?"
So, but here's the thing. And
That's
Zeus
where
and
it gets into the cult.
But Zeus and I were talking about this earlier. Like, except for, and if I grant the government's assertion that they found these 48 fully automatic weapons, except for that, there was no real crimes committed. I mean, even the thing where it's like, oh, he's having sex and marrying underage girls in Texas with parental consent, you could get married. Was it 14 or something? I mean, ridiculous. I don't agree with that.
That's the part that I find far more offensive than the guns.
My point is, technically, it wasn't against the law. The people, like the sheriffs, they knew what was going on there,
So
and
what exactly was the warrant for? What was the crime exactly?
The warrant was for the weapons.
Yeah,
I mean, what was the
altering weapons to make them fully automatic?
Altering semi-automatic rifles.
All of this was just because they thought there might have been a couple of altered weapons.
Right. The whole thing with the whole thing with the underage sex and all that stuff, that didn't come out until after the February.
That seemed.
Was it February?
I think it was in the warrant.
Whatever?
Actually, they talked about it being in there.
Yeah,
but it had nothing. But it's not ATF jurisdiction.
Yeah, there were rumors about sex abuse and that kind of thing. Also, like before this,
that was just sort of like tacked on. About okay,
just
in case you don't think the guns is enough to let us go in there.
I'm going to look that up right now because I don't think that's the case, but I'm not sure. I think under the ATF warrant, it was just guns, and then when the ATF screwed the pooch and the FBI came in, that's when it started. They started talking about.
Maybe it was a joint operation. I'm not sure.
No, it was all ATF, and ATF screwed it up.
Let's
and the
be honest.
FBI came in and took it over. Like,
let's be honest. When have you heard of the ATF going after anybody for alcohol or tobacco?
Right.
No, it's all fucking guns, man. It's all fucking guns.
Yeah, not anymore.
Just call yourself F, the Bureau of F.
I'm just saying, I would love someone to be like, and I'm sure they probably have by this point, but it's like, yeah, this mistakes were made, right? Can we at least admit that? I mean, they could have picked up this guy anytime at the Quickie Mart. He was in town all the time. People knew him. He was always, and he wasn't going around with a posse. He would drive into town by himself. He could have easily been taken.
Apparently, they were like part of the community. They weren't maybe well liked, but
but
they
wait a minute. Wait a second. It wasn't just about. Excuse me. Thank you. Wasn't it more though than just an arrest warrant for David Koresh? I mean, wasn't it a search warrant of the compound?
I believe so.
to
I
look
believe
for
so.
guns. I mean, so they wanted to get in there. It wasn't like let's just bust him when he goes to the gas station. Like, I mean,
But if they considered him a threat, there was ways to I'm saying there's ways to de-escalate this
no, sure,
Yeah.
they
that
screwed
they
up
didn't do.
no, they screwed up at a lot of different points in this whole standoff. I mean, like
I'm
we
going to
talked
go out on a limb and say they shit the bed all over the place, or they knew exactly what they were doing
choreography.
and choreographed the fucking shit out of this. Did you in the video or in the documentary, the one that really made me a little nuts was the guy up on the tower that
Mhm.
you clearly see him getting shot and falling off. I mean, well, not clearly. It was from a distance, but you know what part I'm talking about, Mike?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just God, how
They
are
wouldn't
we
let them retrieve the body, right?
Right.
how are we so naive to believe anything other than this was a dance that we were meant to see?
But
I
they
Yeah,
mean,
sort of
yeah, but like Mike was saying, we talked about the media's role. This was spun in a way where our reaction wasn't like excessive force. The feds are
Right.
doing
did
something.
you
I mean,
guys
it was more like they were doing what had to be done,
didn't you
and
think
these
the media
people
was
were a
fair though?
threat.
When you go
The,
back and watch it,
not
maybe
at all.
I'm just warped from modern day media,
the
but
media was not. The media was horrible. They
they
didn't
didn't.
investigate
You mean at Waco? They
Here's the
didn't look
at
thing.
that.
Waco.
I thought they were
Here,
somewhat fair.
No, they
no, I
didn't
don't think so at all.
investigate. They just repeated what they were being told.
Yeah,
I
I
and
mean, that
don't
was the
here's
know.
here's
I
whole.
the
saw a lot of
difference.
people asking questions and things, and
Well, they were
not
trying to
just
get
buying.
access. They were trying to get
Yes, but we
access.
only saw what they wanted us to see as far as those people asking
Well,
questions.
their view was
Ask
limited.
this question and we'll put you on TV. I think
But I
that
thought they
this
were.
is
I thought they
probably,
were much better than. Obviously, things have deteriorated since then.
but yes, they're
But
Yeah.
by
much better
far,
than now. Way better than now. And I don't think that anything like this, but
I
prove
mean, I
me
would take
wrong, and
that
they
over what we
probably
have
will.
now. Obviously, it was kind of refreshing going back and looking at that. I know it wasn't perfect, but they were kind of
I
limited
think
with
in
what they were given.
Right.
I think in
They were
this
kept at
world that we
distance.
live in now of drones and cell phones fucking everywhere, I
Mhm.
don't think we're going to see a similar situation to this unless they argue that we shut down all their cell phones. But I think that this is probably, we'll not see another one like this again.
I think
We'll
we
see.
will. I think we
Well,
will.
well, no, and Zeus has got a great point. With the amount of eyeballs and cameras on everything, they can't hide stuff that happens anymore, but they can still spin it.
They're
I
not trying
remember,
to hide it. If I
but
could
Or
steal a
just
page out of
release the
Mike's book, they're
information they
not
want to
trying to hide it
release.
anymore.
no, they can't,
They'll
Tom.
go
They
right
can't.
in and set your house on fire and not try to deny it
No,
at
but
this
they'll
point.
spin it. They'll spin it because I remember hearing about fiery but mostly peaceful protests. They had to show the footage, but they had to spin it in a way where it was like a little more innocent and a little less of, destruction, mayhem, violence, and
So
riots. So
just
go ahead, Mike.
sorry. No, because I just found it. It was, and they you can't download it. I don't know how to access this, but it was a report by Department of Justice, two authors from 1996, about specifically about the warrant, and its conflicts with the Fourth Amendment. And basically the summary says, and this is from the government, so kudos, right? I mean, this is what I'm looking for is accountability. A little late, but this analysis of how the government procured the search and arrest warrants that the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms used in its February 28th, 93 raid on the Branch Davidian compound outside Waco, Texas, concludes that both the warrant application itself and the search and seizure laws in the 1990s it was based on have had numerous flaws.
Mhm.
And it also goes on to state that this whole thing originated, which I'm just reading this for the first time. I'm going to do some more investigation, but this whole thing originated as a tax law violation of all things.
That's how they
So,
get
Wow.
that was Al Capone. Al Capone, they couldn't get him on fucking murdering everybody. They got him on tax evasion.
And
Well,
I think
yeah. Well,
I
look
think
how
it,
they're going after Trump based on like, falsifying records or whatever. So
and I think,
they'll get you one way or another.
and it looks like, yeah, they weren't paying taxes on these weapons that they were buying and selling at these gun shows. And then,
But the argument to that is quite often
but
aren't like religions like tax free.
Well, you have
it's
to,
not,
That's
it's
Am I
true.
not
wrong?
burning 82 people alive. I know that.
right.
That's not the
But the
solution.
comparing this, Ruby Ridge to the modern examples of weaponization of government agencies, it's different now because I don't think Waco was necessarily a political. I mean, it was internally political. They were trying to do something to get more budget
CYA.
money
Yeah.
or something like that, but it wasn't like outwardly political. They
I
weren't
think
going after Koresh because he was Democrat or because he was Republican.
Yeah.
No, but wasn't it part and parcel with the assault weapons ban, or was that after?
Yeah, but I don't think
That was
I don't think
later.
they cared
I'll bet it was
who it
later. I'll
was.
bet it was later.
It could have been anybody.
I
And
think
they
that was
went
94.
after it.
Okay.
But nowadays it's
And
more it's all political now. If Biden has classified documents,
Then we
there's no
forget about it.
raid. If Trump has classified
And-
documents, there is a raid.
an interesting observation that I made from the video was the David Koresh lying there up against a wall with a bullet wound in his side. Clearly, it didn't hit any organs because he was pretty chill. But they probably had drugs there too. Like that wouldn't surprise me.
Probably
But
tripping
but
balls all the time. Yeah.
right, his commitment to his cause is undeniable. He was a piece of garbage, and he was, as far as I'm concerned, raping kids and all that. But I can see how they could follow somebody that stuck to their guns. I'm not condoning anything he did.
They stuck to
what
their
I'm
guns.
saying is that, yeah, no kidding, no pun intended. But yeah, I found him a fascinating individual in that he was clearly insane, but he could deliver messages that his followers would completely stick to. Yeah, he was at bare minimum interesting. But I'm not gonna bury you guys in my opinion of Latter-day Saints, but they're questionable at best. A great movie or series that if you guys want to watch it, I think it's on Hulu. It's called Under the Banner of God, and the whole series is based around Latter-day Saints and their tactically different views on a lot of common Christian ideologies. Yeah, it's a very interesting one. Latter-day Saints, I find a very peculiar.
Well,
Latter-day
that's
Saints and
happening
Mormons
as well. That ties in with this. I mean, we're kind of talking about weaponization of government agencies or agencies stepping on the freedoms of people, and they are like
but they're
didn't it
picking
just come out
easy
recently
targets.
that their FBI is like going undercover into these Catholic
Yeah.
groups.
Yeah. Yep.
I didn't know
It
about
sounds
that.
crazy. Yeah, it sounds completely bananas. But
Well, yeah, it seems like the suspicion of like psyops has really grown, and the more every day it feels like there's more reason to feel that way. Like January 6th is ripe with it. The attempted kidnapping of the governor, I think it was Minnesota. Supposedly FBI agents made up the majority of the people that were supposedly.
I know. Yeah, it wasn't
know
even
what I
just like
mean?
one. It was like the vast majority.
Well, and
Right.
yeah.
Right, and
If you can get them,
that's why we kid on this podcast that Tom is really an incel working for the government because
Yeah.
who knows really.
Yeah.
well, here's the interesting thing: if you can get them in there to cause havoc, why can't you get them in there to cause havoc? You know what I mean? Like you can cause havoc amongst the group, but what about if you just get that person in there and they're like tight with the number one or 3 steps down and they say the right words and suddenly
And then you're just
they're
setting them
creating
up.
the problem.
Yeah.
Yes,
that you can
exactly.
arrest like
Well, that's what
2
happened
dozen of
with
them.
that's what happened with the Minnesota kidnapping. At least a lot of people, have that theory that these guys were more the masterminds of it, and then the bumbling idiots that got caught up in it, it was just another bust,
Yeah.
It's one
you
thing when
know?
you're kind of
It
infiltrating the
kind of
mob
harkens to the
or like a
Pelosi's
biker
husband
gang,
thing.
but
Wait,
if you're
what?
like going into one of these groups and you're instigating them to do something that they wouldn't have done on their own,
Right, that's what's happening in
yeah,
the
Yeah.
Beast of
then now you're going too far.
But it's low hanging fruit, right? I mean, there's all kind. Like I said, righteous indignation.
It's low
If
hanging
you
fruit,
can,
but you shouldn't be grabbing that fruit at all.
no, I'm
You're
saying you
not
shouldn't
doing
be.
anything.
And
You shouldn't
also,
be.
why aren't they infiltrating groups like Antifa, or you know what I
Right.
mean? Like, why is it always? It seems like it's the people on the right,
Well, there's where the
like
political
Well,
the
then,
slant that we
Maybe
have
they
these
then
are.
days.
Maybe they
Yeah.
are
let's look
driving
at
some
the
things in Antifa.
right, but
let's
they're
look at
not busting anybody.
let's
Zing.
look at the
Yep.
zealots from 9/11. When they're promised that their family will be taken care of if they fight the good fight, and they're already mentally imbalanced to begin with, because clearly anybody that's going to fly a building, fly a plane into a plane, fly a plane into a building is
Mm.
clearly not the
No.
most balanced
No,
individual you're gonna run across.
I disagree. I think people again. I think it's.
So
I
you
think it.
support the 9/11
Yeah,
bombers?
I
Is that what
support.
you're saying?
I support. I just want to say I'm glad that. Come on, man. I'm saying I don't. I'm not just going to let people off the hook and be like, oh, they're crazy. Okay, people can be convinced, and people
Of anything,
can find a
They thought they were
reason.
going to heaven by doing that.
They can
right?
rationalize it any way they want. I mean, they may be. I'm just saying. I don't know that they were stupid. I don't know that they were crazy. I think they were
They were
true believers.
pliable.
I think they were true believers. But so's a ton of people. I mean, people that go and storm machine gun nests and all that stuff. I mean, they don't. They're irrational
Yeah,
sometimes.
it's dedication, isn't it? It's
It's
dedication to a
dedication,
cause.
and it's
It's
not to be
zealotry.
admired.
Kamikazes did the same
I
thing.
mean,
All on a, although
kamikaze. Yeah,
they didn't knock out a whole
There's a little
building.
more to kamikazes. They were
Yeah,
like given
they were
only enough
drugged
to
up.
get
yeah.
fuel. Well,
But
they were
Zeus,
also
they
given
literally
only
flew
enough
a
fuel
plane
to get where
into.
they were going.
Right, but they
That's what the
literally flew a plane
kamikazes
into
did.
something. This is literally what the kamikazes did. I'm just saying, I'm not. I can't just dismiss it as like they're crazy. Like it's more scary than that. I don't think I can't just dismiss it as that. The
No,
scarier
they're
part
driven.
is that they're driven.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
So
the
that's
scary part.
religion. I mean, but I don't think that the government, that the U.S. government was involved in that.
Who knows?
That's a whole nother episode with other
Yeah.
documentaries. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
there are
Dude,
theories.
Thermite paint.
Dude, I'm at the point now. I wake up and I look at my phone and it says it's Tuesday, and I'm like, I need another source. Like that's where I am
Yeah.
with things right now.
Yeah, you say it's Tuesday, but
Yeah.
you're part of the fucking problem.
Mhm.
I just need more information. Yeah.
I know yesterday was Monday, but who says Tuesday comes after Monday?
Yeah.
Hey,
That
you
sounds
know
like
what?
you
a
want
Chris
me to
Farley
believe?
bit.
Something I just thought of that from back in the day with Janet Reno and sort of this, excessive force by the federal government maybe, and like this new image of the federal government that started to like scare people. Right on the heels of this, it had to be a few years later. Do you guys remember the whole story of little Elian Gonzalez, the Cuban kid in Florida?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
that was Janet
Refresh my
Reno's
memory. What was
call.
it?
That was Janet Reno's call as well. What happened was there was a little boy that was part of a defection out of Cuba that landed on, on the sand in South Florida, which at the time was supposed to mean that, okay, this kid made it. He's going to be an American now, and he had family that was there. Now the thing was, his biological father was still in Cuba,
And his mother died on the way.
and his mother died on the way, but the dad was still in Cuba, and there was some relation starting to grow between our government and the Cuban government at the time. and they wanted to sort of foster that. And so when this dad said, I want my kid back, the federal government got involved and said, at the end of the day, yeah, that kid's got to go back to Cuba. And it was this amazing photograph that you can still find. The way they got the kid, the woman who was like his aunt or his cousin, she was a very young woman. And there's a photo of her holding this kid in a closet of their apartment with a guy from the federal government all swatted up with like an M16 pointing at them in the bedroom of this apartment, like pointing toward the closet. And that image exploded. And that's when I think between that and the Waco hearings,
Yeah.
people started to get a little frightened of the federal government. Like,
So they
what?
sent him at gunpoint back to Cuba.
Yeah.
Yes, they did. He
And-
I
went
and
back
he
remember
was
the name.
crying.
I just don't remember the
And he was
details of it.
crying and everything else. And I think, Jack, I think that's an amazing example, because what it showed was that the federal government has priorities that are outside and different than what the population of the country is, right?
Right.
So the federal government is supposed to be there to provide security for the states and to deal with interstate commerce and to do all that stuff. But this
Right.
was like, wait a minute, 90% of people in the United States were like, this kid should stay here. This is where his cousins and his uncles and his aunts are.
And his mother
And-
died for him.
And his
right?
mother died for him. And Castro is a Marxist tyrant who like kills people, for disagreeing with him. And
Right.
of course the father is going to say he wants him back, as if the father has any
Right.
choice, right? So
they talk
and
about killing the fly with a sledgehammer.
yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
same thing with the Waco. You could have just knocked on the door. Or for this one, you could have just sent in. Gianna Reno herself could have walked in there and opened up the closet door and
But
very
a lot of
softly,
times,
got the kid out.
there's an old, and I'm misquoting it, but there's an old expression. It's like, if you have power, it doesn't mean anything unless you exercise it. So from time to time, it needs to be exercised in order to show people who has the power.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that's what the
I don't know, but it seems
there.
like it. I mean, in other words, what I'm saying is the federal government had its
How did the
own
photographer get there?
reason they were there. It was a huge media circus, dude.
The
It
guy
was
with the
on the
gun
news
said, "Okay,
every night.
photographer, you get in position."
It was
I'm gonna
like
open the
4
door
in the
right now."
morning. There was like, it wasn't just the family. There were like neighborhood people and press people that were like
Yeah.
camping out in this house because they knew the administration had already said that
They were
we're going to
coming.
get this kid out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah, they knew it was coming.
Just a poor execution.
And now Elian Gonzalez is like
He's gotta
avid
be-
pro Castro, politician in Cuba.
Is that right?
Yeah, he just got elected like a month ago.
Oh, that's funny. So they got to him, I guess.
He won. I think he won like 100% of the vote. Of course,
Oh, it's a legitimate election.
totally
Absolutely.
legit. Yeah,
Well,
totally
when
legit.
you're a little kid and the American soldiers pointing a gun at you, yeah, you're gonna be.
And
Yeah.
the photo Jack's talking about. I mean, he was screaming like red faced, crying.
Yeah, it was not.
It's a powerful photo. I mean,
Yeah, it's not a good look.
Traumatized.
It's not a
not
good
a good
look.
look.
No.
What
I mean-
photo is this?
Elian Gonzalez.
Oh yeah, with the gun pointing right
Yeah,
at
that's
him.
there you go, Zeus. That's right.
But there were so many, like, you look at all the distraction, like the Bill Clinton, they spent like $5 billion to prove that he got a blowjob
It wasn't
in
5
the
billion,
White House.
but
But whatever. But
Yeah.
the point is that they spent this immense amount of money to prove that what everybody knew. I mean, it's Bill. Come on. I feel like everything is distractions, and that maybe we're just not looking back far enough to see when the distractions began.
it's just
Like
the stakes
that-
are higher and things are faster. Things are speeding up. That's the issue. The stakes are higher. The power is more intense. The ability to sway public opinion is more easily exercised now. So
Mhm.
everything's happening faster. Things are speeding up.
Unabashedly, no
Mhm.
shame to it. They're literally doing things and going, what are you going to do?
Right.
It's a
That's why I think
frightening.
it'll happen again. And because both of these, the Ruby Ridge and the Waco, they were based basically on about guns and, you know, taking away the Second Amendment rights and restricting certain guns and taking away automatic rifles, semi-automatic. It's going to
Bump
happen again because
stocks.
they're going to want to confiscate guns, and then somebody's not going to want to give up their guns, and it's
Yeah,
inevitable that you're going to have a firefight.
and the federal government is very provocative, and people who are in the federal government, especially members of the party, are very provocative. I mean, if you just as an example, you look at like
The party.
situation around January 6th, 2021, there are Congress critters to this day, and our president to this day say that multiple police officers were killed on January 6th, which is it's just factually incorrect.
Not a single one died.
And yet they still say it, and no one in the press challenges them. And so it's like it's like, well, okay, so you're okay that this guy committed suicide the next day? No, but I do appreciate factual reporting, which we don't have. And like we said, once you don't have trust in what you're being told, things go south really fast. Like they go south very quickly.
Didn't Biden, after this this person walked into the school that was of binary, non-binary, I can't even keep up with it anymore.
I was so
Tennessee?
confused. I was so confused. Yeah.
Tennessee?
Yeah.
Tennessee.
I had no idea what was going on for like 3 days.
Actually come out and say, like, we stand in solidarity with
the trans community?
Trans community.
Yeah.
And it's not about this person being
With
trans.
no sympathy
I don't
for
think
the
that
people that got killed.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but that was like just horrible timing, because Trans Day of Visibility, which was the big thing being promoted by the community and by the federal government, like Zeus is saying with Biden, it was time
specifically in response to this shooting.
Oh, I thought they
Jean-Pierre came out and said
I thought they set that date for that.
So they said the trans community was under attack.
Yeah.
When they asked her about this shooting.
Right.
Think about it. Trans person shoots
a bunch of kids.
How many people died?
Six
people.
And they say, Jean-Pierre says that it was the trans community that was under attack.
Right. And then
here's the thing.
And that was it. Go ahead, Zeus.
I don't even think that we're revolutionaries. I don't think that we're like screaming from the rafters or whatever you want to call it. I don't think that we're like saying anything that is like controversial.
Yeah, no, I think
but soon will be a religion.
The Friends of Zeus religion.
I feel it's like, I don't think that, I mean, yes, we do go against the grain a bit, but I don't think we're like revolutionaries. I think that if you've got eyes and you got half a fucking brain in your head, how can you not see all the crazy stuff that's going on? And we're having to go back, when was that, 92? So 30 years.
30 years.
Yeah.
And it really is becoming apparent to me that may have been, until we find something before that, maybe Charlie Atworth on Texas A&M, where we just got duped. We felt like David Koresh was a bad guy because it was fed to us. This is a bad guy. Don't question us. And he was a likely target, clearly. But was he, again, it's kind of like when we talk about the George Floyd thing versus Ahmaud Arbery. Like, if I'm going to pick from a rational state of mind, if I'm going to pick the guy to lead my movement, it's going to be, for BLM, it's going to be the Ahmaud Arbery guy.
Yeah.
The guy was looking in a building, and then two white ex-cops fucking shoot him with a shotgun on camera.
In the middle of the street.
They picked the guy that, and no disrespect to his death. It was clearly unjust.
Can I tell you
that
why?
Much I'll say.
Can I tell you why? There was better footage of Floyd.
Exactly. Well, I don't know. Getting shot in the fucking chest with a shotgun's
But it was
pretty damn
far in the
movie.
background. It was like in the distance. It wasn't as
No, it
visceral.
wasn't really. It was like 20 feet away. I mean, he was clearly
Well,
shot in
wait.
the chest.
Well, it was a different. It's a different thing altogether because George Floyd was quote unquote murdered by police officers in the while they were performing their duties as cops. The guy who got shot in the street was like two rednecks in a pickup truck who happened to be white who shot him because
And
he was black.
ex-cops.
Can
They
I
were
can
both
I
ex-cops.
I just have a side note here because I was thinking about this the other night, and I hope I don't get arrested or tackled by cops anytime in my life. But I was thinking, and
Not with your hips.
not just, dude,
I
they're
was
great
thinking the
now.
same thing.
They're brand new now. But
That's right.
I was thinking, personally, like, can you imagine being tackled, getting your arms behind your back, you're down on the ground, you got people's knees on your back, your face is in the concrete, you've got three dudes that are big dudes, like it's hard to breathe. I mean, like when my daughter jumps on me, I'm like, oh, right.
Right.
So, and you're on the ground, and
It's
it's not for 10 seconds, it's for, I mean, it's like you've got to fear for your life. And so it's like, man, am I gonna die? Like, they're gonna
Right.
crush, I can't breathe. And
Well,
then
yeah, but
if you start saying like, oh,
well,
I can't breathe, they're like, oh, just sit still. I mean,
yeah, it also helps not to take 3 times the lethal dose of fentanyl and
no, I
cocaine.
got you. I'm just saying, I'm just saying it is like that guy that was selling cigarettes in New York, and he got tackled and
Oh, yeah,
strangled
yeah.
and brought to the ground and everything. I mean, can you, I don't know, man, that just scares the crap out of me. I
Yeah,
mean,
well, that goes back to excessive force, which was the whole point of of the podcast, right? I mean, that's when you have officers of the law stepping, outside what we would call professional or reasonable.
yeah, they're supposed to be professional.
Right. I
You know, was
mean,
another
and and
interesting
and
story.
and
Well,
Floyd could
well,
have been avoided. Cuff him to the car, call an EMT, call an ambulance if he's having
done. They
some.
had him down. Like, why not just cuff
Yeah.
him and forget about it? I don't
There was
understand it.
a story around this time. Jack, you're probably familiar with this. Are you
Okay.
familiar with the Fruitvale Station
Yeah,
thing? Are you familiar with that?
No,
What
I've
was that
heard it.
one?
What
it
was
was in New
that?
York.
A
What
great
happened?
movie called Fruitvale Station with believe it or not, Michael B. Jordan. It's like
Oh,
his first
yeah, Zeus,
like
you mentioned this in another podcast actually, because I remember you said
yeah,
Michael B. Jordan.
yeah, so he was like the actual person. They were all like at a metro station, and the cops were being excessively aggressive. And he kind of just stood up and he's like, I'm not going to take this. He
Mm,
didn't throw fists, he didn't do anything. And they tackle him to the ground.
they beat him up.
And the cop no, they fucking shoot him
Wow.
on the ground. He had no weapons. They'd already
But this
it
is the
was
movie portrayal you're talking about.
Mhm.
no, but you can find the video online. It is clear that he was tackled to the ground and shot, weaponless. Like, I don't know, man. We're
Yeah,
not
well,
picking the best representatives for our causes. Like that one
yeah, but
was
I still got to chalk it up to this though. When you think about the number of men and women in law enforcement in the country, and you think about the amount of interactions they have with the public breaking the law, sometimes being violent, the percentage of cops that are just bad guys or do something really egregious, it's got to be pretty small. Like I still don't believe that every cop out there is looking to kill people based
I
on their
think it's
skin.
like 3% of them are fucking bad guys, like bad lieutenant bad guys. I
Right.
think most of them did this because they wanted to make a difference.
Or they like the
Sometimes they
job. They like you said,
yeah.
they like the pension. They like the fact that that they get a gun and a car and they get to basically not get
Listen, when I was
convicted
in the
of anything.
military, I wanted to become an MP. I was right there, like fight the good fight, blah blah blah. And I don't think I would have wavered from it. I do think I'm an anomaly in that situation. I would have been happy with just being able to help people. Like
get
that's
home.
what I do now.
Yeah, and get home safe every night. And remember, that's a
Yeah.
factor too.
Dude,
I mean, I'm the guy on my unit that runs towards the problem that's happening. It's far safer than being a cop, but
Sure.
it's still dangerous.
Yeah. Wait, what do you do for a living? I forgot.
I will not answer that question.
Okay, sorry, I had to.
Mike, what do I do for a living?
You work at 7-Eleven.
Yes, I
overnight.
do.
Yes, he
Yes,
runs.
I do.
Yes, he runs toward the hot dog
He
heater
runs
that they have.
towards the chili cheese
Towards the
nachos.
Slurpees.
Big gulps for everybody.
Dude, I'm not a special pleader for anybody, but years ago I had an acquaintance who was a Baltimore City police officer, and I think I've told this story before, but I'll keep it short. But he was called to a house with his patrol partner for domestic violence situation, and it was supposedly like this mother and daughter, and the mother was like in her 70s or something.
Wow.
Anyway, they get into the house. They hear all the screaming and fighting and stuff like that. They're going up the stairs. The older lady comes out. She's got a butcher knife. She comes running down the stairs at him.
Wait, was she a butcher?
No. And this guy, his name was Phil, and his partner, who's over his shoulder, just open up. Kill her,
wow.
right?
Yeah.
So it was reported in the Baltimore Sun and all this stuff, like, this cop shoots a 70-year-old woman or whatever. And he's telling me this story, and it's like the stairway was 20 inches wide. It was going up. It was an old house. It was going up to the
like
top
one of the old
floor
row
attic.
houses.
No, it wasn't a row. It was single family, but it was in Govans. It's going up to the old attic and stuff like that. And he's in there. He's like shoulder to shoulder on this stairway, and his partner's like behind him. And she comes running out. He's like, it was like Anthony.
He just watched
Psycho.
Psycho like the night before.
Yeah, like Anthony Perkins from Psycho, and she's like tripping down the stairs. He's like, dude, she was like 7 feet away.
7
Blah, blah,
feet.
blah. He's
away.
like when they shot, and she was just screaming and coming at him. He said the knife, like it went. He did get injured from it, but
From
again,
7 feet away. How'd she get?
no,
him?
because she kept falling after they shot her. It's like she's coming at them with the knife. But my point is, the news report was like, Baltimore police officer kills 78-year-old woman in her home. She's holding a kitchen knife. He was like, dude, it was not like that. I'm just saying, I would not want to be a police officer. Do they make mistakes? They make mistakes all the time. I'm sure, just like the dudes made mistakes at Waco.
Or that lady that pulled the gun instead of the taser, and she got.
God. I mean, was she like, I'm gonna go kill somebody today? Probably not. But again,
who wakes up and says, I'm gonna kill a fucking innocent person today?
It's like that whole thing, like play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Like, you know what a good thing to do is? Don't get yourself in a situation where you have a cop pointing a gun at you. Maybe that would be a good.
Yeah, that's like the ratio of fuck around and find out.
Yes.
Have you seen that video?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and I'll go back to the 90s with one of my favorite commercials I ever saw.
Back to the 90s.
Was this I love the 90s. Was this commercial with Charles Barkley where he was like, you know what? I'm a piece of shit. Don't let your kids follow my lead.
I'm not your role model.
I mean,
I'm not your kid's role model.
I'm not your role model.
I mean,
right.
I'm a what's the word?
I'm an athlete.
I'm breaking it down. But yeah, and it kind of, it really was a powerful statement, because yes, Waco, you don't want to get shot. Don't put yourself into a situation where you may get shot. I managed to do that. Mike, have you been shot? Jack, have you been shot? Tom, have you been shot?
Shot at.
Because we don't put ourselves into those situations.
That counts, Jack. I think that counts. Like,
I'm only.
the fact,
I know.
Okay.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
All right.
But
any other?
The point being,
we again, Zeus. I was going to say we've been on for a while, but I'll hold up.
Weaponization of
I just my point being is, don't put yourself. You are responsible for the environment that you put yourself into. So
to an extent,
Yep.
There are jack off, law enforcement people too. So
So
Wait, is that the
what do we
fire
call
alarm?
this? What do we call Waco? Do we
Hmm?
call Waco
Is that the fire
choreography, or do
alarm?
we
I
call
think
it
I need to leave.
conspiracy?
Well, it's a combination of choreography and the way it was portrayed, but it also could be just like Mike said, what's professionalism and what's not. What mistakes were made? What cops got an itchy trigger finger? Like, there's so many factors that go into it. And then, of course, there's the culpability of the religion, the group itself. Like, what were they up to, and what reactions did they have as this started to unfold? So it's a pretty complicated mess, but like Tom, you started out talking about the weaponization of the federal government, and you rattled off some of the things we're seeing here now 30 years later under the guise of one new credo or another. I mean, like, there's talk about an assault weapons ban now every time there's a shooting when it suits their needs. And we obviously had what's going on with Trump that you guys talked about a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about the Mar-a-Lago raid. It's a little scary, and you kind of see how some of these extremist groups, if they are out there in the number that's suggested by the party, how this starts to grow. People get suspicious. You get your McVeighs, and
Yeah.
I don't know what the solution is, because what are the feds up to? Every time we turn the TV on, it seems like some kind of cover up or some kind of bullshit.
Well, it's not what McVeigh did.
No, McVeigh, no. I'm talking about McVeigh is a
He killed children
reaction.
as well.
No, McVeigh is a reaction to his
Right,
fears
he
and his
was, but that
paranoia
was not
about
the
what
appropriate
about
reaction.
what the
And we're not
federal
But
government
endorsing
is doing.
my,
And I wonder how many people are getting that jaded with the federal government and
he,
maybe, stockpiling a couple of weapons. I mean,
he, here's the thing that drives me nuts, and I'm done, and you guys can finish up. But look, for it, whatever happens, the government is always like, look, if you give us some more of your liberty, if you give up some more of your liberty, we're going to
Right.
protect you. Like,
and
if
more
you
money.
just a little bit.
if you aren't able to buy this weapon, we're going to be able to protect you. If you're able to give us more
TikTok
money,
thing you talked about last
we'll,
week.
yeah, we'll be able to protect you. And they can't protect you. So it's like being in an abusive relationship. It's like, I'm not going to hit you anymore, baby. Just, all I need you to do is, and I pow, like, whatever. I mean, they fuck up all the time, and yet they keep their answer is, hey, law-abiding citizen, here's
Yeah.
what you need to give up to give us more power so we can prevent this from happening. And then it happens again. And then here's what you need to give up to prevent it from happening. And I don't know. It's very frustrating.
Listen, where I work, they said on April 3rd, you don't have to wear any masks anymore, right? Because of COVID.
Welcome to 2022.
So wait. So I
Just
go
now.
in and I'm not wearing a mask. And boy, did I get I mean, they didn't like lay into me, but they were like, I'd be more comfortable if you would wear your mask.
Of course.
And it's like, it's just ludicrous how we're just being walked over, and now they can say don't wear your mask and you still wear your fucking mask.
Yeah, well, that's conditioning by certain people that it got
Right.
to. It got to them. Now they're afraid they're gonna turn like green if they breathe the same air as you.
And what they don't realize is that we had the Spanish flu, we had the bubonic plague, we had all these things where we wore masks, and then when it was gone, we stopped wearing masks. What's the difference here? We're continuing to wear the masks.
Yeah,
And
you
I'm
don't
not
think about
saying
it.
I don't have that big
Good
of a
point.
problem with wearing the mask if it makes people I work with comfortable. I have a problem with them trying to make me part of their, for lack of a better term, cult.
Cult,
Of,
Yeah. We don't
You
think
know what I
about
mean?
like CDC and FDA being part of this
Yeah.
with the FBI and the
Yeah,
ATF, but they are.
I was,
They are.
They're
I
like
was,
stepping on your freedoms as well.
Absolutely.
I was telling Mike earlier when we were talking about the rules of engagement, I was like, Chuck Schumer, oh my God, that douchebag motherfucker.
He was jackassy way back then.
Thank you,
Oh
Tom.
my
Yeah,
God,
Zeus
was
was
that
like,
guy
man,
never
He was like
not
the
a
only
cunt?
one. He really
did this-
stood out.
dude, he's always been like that.
Everybody else seemed kind of normal.
It's
compared
like,
to him.
look, I'm Chuck Schumer. What's he got? Like the hair going back like this?
Oh
Dude,
my
that guy
God,
is
what
a
piece of garbage that guy was.
Yeah, he knows how to talk to New Yorkers though, because
He
he's
was
still
hell bent
there.
on some grenades
He's-
being there
He's
somewhere.
still there.
My God, he was such an asset. Him and the guy that was like, no shot was ever fired. I guarantee it. I was there. It's like, oh, because you were there and you say that it didn't happen, we're supposed to automatically believe it.
Mhm.
It
Hey,
was a
wait,
fiasco.
guys, can I ask a question now? I wasn't here when you guys came up with this subject for tonight, and obviously it has to do with the 30th anniversary, I assume, right? And
Yeah.
that's
Right.
tomorrow.
that's tomorrow. And I'm just curious, have the networks that we talk about all the time, and then alternatively Fox, has there been a lot of talk about Waco on TV already, or is it they're saving it for tomorrow? And
I haven't seen it.
well,
Or it's a pay no attention to the man behind the curtain
well, no,
situation, and they're not gonna.
well, that's what I was getting at. I wonder how much talk the 30th anniversary of let's call it a tragedy. I mean, because people died.
Absolutely.
Well, you see, it hasn't gone
Um,
away. You
like,
talked about the Netflix documentary.
Well,
and
no,
then
that's what I
this other
mean.
one on Amazon.
That's what
So
I'm
it
getting
kind
at.
of like keeps it's still
I'm
got
just
legs.
No, I'm just wondering if the network news is going to mention it and in what light. Because like if the CNNs and the MSNBCs, et cetera, don't want us talking about excessive use of power by the federal government, they're not going to mention that at all. Or they're gonna or
I think
they're
it would
going
just be
to
a footnote for them.
yeah, they'll
today.
spin it in the
Unless they can say
direction
Trump was responsible for it.
right.
I think it was Trump's fault.
Well, he was alive back then, so sure, I'm sure he had a hand in it.
So real quick, I just checked NBC, ABC, CBS, and Fox, and they're on their web pages. There's no mention of
No
Waco
mention.
at all.
Okay,
Now,
well,
maybe there will be tomorrow.
yeah, there probably will be. If it's a slow news day, they got to come up with content. I just wonder what their
And
spin on it's going to be. But
and here's
I
my
guess we'll have
biggest
to wait
thing
and see.
I think the big takeaway from this is in history, April is a fucking shitty month.
It is.
You got fucking
Columbine.
Hitler's birthday. You got
Hitler's birthday.
this.
Columbine.
You got
Waco.
Columbine
Oklahoma
was
City.
420. April fucking sucks. I'm dodging April next year. That's my takeaway from all this is April
right.
sucks.
Okay, well, on that note, I think we have been on for a while,
What?
and I think it's probably time we wrap things up.
Yeah, fuck April.
Bye, guys. Thanks for watching.